Hey friends, tonight we drift quietly into the flower-strewn chambers of medieval history, past the castle walls and cathedral spires, into the spaces where hearts fluttered, promises were whispered, and two souls began their journey together. You've likely heard the tales of arranged marriages and loveless unions in the Middle Ages, but the truth is gentler, more complex, and sometimes surprisingly tender than the legends suggest. So light a candle, settle in, let me know what time it is for you and where you're listening from. And let's take a soft walk through the honeymoon traditions of medieval Europe. The etymology of our word honeymoon takes us back to the ancient practice of sharing honey wine or mead during the first month of marriage. Picture, if you will, a young couple in 12th century England sitting by the warm glow of a hearth as autumn winds whisper through the wooden shutters. In their hands, they hold simple clay cups filled with a golden liquid that catches the firelight and seems to hold the very essence of sweetness itself. This was mead, fermented from honey and water, sometimes infused with herbs and spices that had been carefully chosen for their properties of love, fertility, and gentle healing. The preparation of this sacred drink was often a family affair, with mothers and grandmothers gathering in the weeks before a wedding to ensure that the brew would be ready for the new couple's first month together. The connection to lunar cycles was not accidental or merely poetic. Medieval people lived their lives in harmony with the natural rhythms of the world around them, and the moon's cycle provided a perfect measurement for this crucial period of adjustment. One full lunar cycle, approximately 30 days, was seen as the ideal length of time for a couple to transition from their separate lives into their shared existence. During this month, as the moon waxed and waned in the sky above their chambers, the couple would drink their daily portion of mead, a ritual that marked the passage of time and the gradual deepening of their bond. The moon was also associated with feminine cycles and fertility, making it a natural symbol for the beginning of a marriage that was hoped to be fruitful and blessed with children. Medieval understanding of the first month of marriage was remarkably sophisticated, recognizing that the transition from single life to married life required patience, gentleness, and time. This was not simply a period of celebration, but a carefully structured time of adjustment that acknowledged the psychological and emotional challenges facing a newly married couple. In an era when most marriages were arranged by families, when couples might have met only once or twice before their wedding day, the honeymoon month served as a bridge between the formal ceremony and the real beginning of their life together. It was understood that affection could not be commanded or forced, but must be allowed to grow naturally, like a garden that requires the right conditions of soil, water, and sunlight to flourish. The role of mead in wedding celebrations extended far beyond the honeymoon month itself. This ancient beverage was considered sacred in many cultures, believed to possess properties that could enhance fertility, promote love, and bring good fortune to the union. The process of making mead was itself a form of blessing, as families would begin the fermentation process months before the wedding, allowing the honey to slowly transform into wine under the careful watch of experienced brewers. The honey used in the mead was often sourced from the family's own beehives, making the drink a literal embodiment of the sweetness and industry that were hoped to characterize the marriage. During the wedding feast, guests would toast the couple with mead, and the remaining supply would be carefully preserved for the couple's exclusive use during their honeymoon month. The seasonal timing of medieval weddings was closely tied to the agricultural calendar and the availability of ingredients for the honeymoon feast. Most weddings took place in late spring or early summer, when the harvest was complete and food was abundant, but also when the weather was mild enough to allow for comfortable celebration. This timing also coincided with the peak production of honey, as bees were most active during the warmer months, ensuring that fresh honey would be available for the brewing of mead. The late summer and early autumn months were particularly favored for weddings, as this timing allowed the couple to settle into their new life together before the harsh winter months arrived, when they would need to rely on their bond and cooperation to survive the challenges of cold weather and limited resources. The concept of the honey month existed across different cultures throughout medieval Europe, though the specific customs and rituals varied from region to region. In Germanic cultures, the tradition of drinking mead during the first month of marriage was so deeply ingrained that the word for honeymoon in German, Flitterwochen, literally translates to tinsel weeks, referring to the decorative and celebratory nature of this period. In Celtic cultures, the honey month was associated with the goddess Brigid, who was believed to bless marriages and oversee the fertility of both land and people. French medieval culture embraced the concept of lune de miel, emphasizing the lunar aspect of the tradition and the belief that the moon's cycles could influence the harmony between husband and wife. Scandinavian cultures had their own unique approach to the honey month, incorporating elements of their Norse heritage that emphasized the importance of hospitality and the sharing of resources. In these northern regions, the newly married couple would be provided with a special chamber that was stocked with enough mead to last for the entire lunar cycle, along with other provisions that would allow them to focus entirely on getting to know each other without the distractions of daily work and responsibilities. The mead used in Scandinavian honeymoons was often flavored with juniper berries and herbs that were believed to have protective properties, ensuring that the couple would be safe from both physical harm and spiritual interference during this vulnerable period of transition. In Mediterranean cultures, where grapes were more readily available than honey, the honeymoon tradition was adapted to include wine as well as mead, though honey remained the primary symbol of sweetness and fertility. Italian families would often prepare a special blend of honey wine that incorporated local herbs and spices, creating a unique flavor profile that reflected the regional cuisine and agricultural practices. Spanish medieval culture embraced the concept of luna de miel with particular enthusiasm, incorporating elements of Moorish influence that emphasized the importance of creating a beautiful and comfortable environment for the newly married couple. The preparation for the honey month began weeks or even months before the wedding ceremony itself. Families would carefully select the finest honey, often from multiple sources, to create a complex flavor profile in the finished mead. The fermentation process was closely monitored, with experienced brewers checking the progress regularly to ensure that the drink would be ready at just the right time. The vessels used for brewing and storing the mead were often specially made for this purpose, crafted from clay or wood and decorated with symbols of love, fertility, and good fortune. These vessels would later be given to the couple as part of their wedding gifts, serving as a permanent reminder of their honeymoon month and the sweetness that had marked the beginning of their marriage. The actual consumption of mead during the honeymoon month was ritualized and meaningful, not simply a matter of drinking for pleasure or intoxication. Each evening, as the sun set and the day's activities came to an end, the couple would share a cup of mead together, often accompanied by quiet conversation about their hopes, fears, and dreams for their future together. This daily ritual provided structure to their days and created a sense of intimacy that might otherwise have been difficult to achieve between two people who were still essentially strangers to each other. The mead was typically served in small quantities, just enough to create a gentle warmth and relaxation without impairing judgment or behavior. The honey month also served practical purposes beyond the romantic and symbolic ones. In medieval society, marriage was not just a union between two individuals, but a joining of two families and their resources. The honeymoon month provided time for the couple to learn about each other's habits, preferences, and ways of managing household affairs. The new wife would gradually become familiar with the routines and expectations of her husband's family, while the husband would learn to accommodate the needs and preferences of his new spouse. This period of adjustment was crucial for the long-term success of the marriage, as it laid the foundation for the cooperation and understanding that would be necessary for managing a household and raising children. The medical understanding of the time also supported the tradition of the honey month. Medieval physicians believed that honey had healing properties that could strengthen the body and promote fertility. The regular consumption of mead during the honeymoon was thought to prepare the woman's body for pregnancy while also enhancing the man's virility and strength. Honey was also believed to have calming properties that could soothe nervous temperaments and promote peaceful sleep, which was considered essential for maintaining good health and emotional balance during the stressful period of marriage adjustment. The spiritual dimensions of the honey month were equally important in medieval culture. The church generally approved of the tradition, seeing it as a way to encourage fidelity and strengthen the bond between husband and wife. Priests would often bless the mead before it was consumed, and special prayers were offered for the couple's happiness and fertility during their honeymoon month. The honey itself was seen as a symbol of divine sweetness, a reminder that marriage was a sacred institution blessed by God and deserving of reverence and care. As we reflect on these ancient traditions, we can see how the medieval understanding of the honeymoon was both practical and deeply meaningful. It recognized that love and intimacy cannot be rushed or forced, but must be allowed to develop naturally through shared experiences and gentle patience. The honey month provided a structured yet flexible framework for this development, offering couples the time and space they needed to begin their journey together while surrounded by the support and blessings of their community. In our modern world, where couples often rush from their wedding day directly into the pressures of work and daily life, perhaps there is wisdom to be found in this ancient tradition of taking time to savor the sweetness of new love and to build the foundation for a lasting partnership through patience, ritual, and shared moments of quiet intimacy. Chapter 2. The Wedding Night, Sacred and Secular Rituals. Friends, we now step gently into the most intimate and sacred space of medieval marriage, where the public celebration gives way to private union, and where ancient rituals merge the sacred with the deeply personal. The wedding night in medieval times was far more than a simple transition from ceremony to intimacy. It was a carefully orchestrated series of rituals that acknowledged the profound significance of the moment while providing structure and meaning to what could otherwise be an overwhelming experience for two people who might barely know each other. Tonight, let us explore these tender customs with the respect and understanding they deserve, recognizing that what might seem strange to modern eyes was actually a compassionate system designed to ease the transition from individual lives to shared existence. The bedding ceremony stands as perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of medieval wedding traditions, often portrayed in popular culture as a crude public spectacle, when in reality it was a deeply meaningful ritual that balanced community involvement with personal privacy. The ceremony began as the wedding feast drew to its natural conclusion, when the last songs had been sung and the final toasts had been raised. The bride and groom would be escorted to their chamber by a procession of family members and honored guests, but this escort was not the invasive intrusion that modern minds might imagine. Instead, it was a gentle transition that acknowledged the community's investment in the marriage while respecting the couple's need for privacy. The procession moved slowly through the halls of the manor or castle, often accompanied by soft singing or the gentle playing of instruments, creating an atmosphere of reverence rather than rowdy celebration. The public aspects of the bedding ceremony were carefully controlled and deeply symbolic. The bride would be attended by the married women of her family, who would help her remove her wedding dress and prepare her for the night ahead. This preparation was not merely practical, but ritual, as the women would offer gentle advice, share blessings, and provide the emotional support that a young bride might desperately need as she faced this momentous transition. The groom, meanwhile, would be attended by the married men of his family, who would help him remove his formal wedding attire and offer their own counsel about the responsibilities and joys of married life. These same gender attendants served as buffers between the couple and the larger community, ensuring that the most intimate moments remained private while still allowing the community to witness and bless the beginning of the marriage. The private aspects of the bedding ceremony were where the true tenderness of medieval tradition revealed itself. Once the couple had been prepared and the blessing had been given, the attendants would withdraw, leaving the husband and wife alone in their chamber. But this withdrawal was not abrupt or uncaring. Often, a trusted female relative would remain nearby, available to provide comfort or assistance if needed, while maintaining enough distance to allow the couple their privacy. The chamber itself had been prepared with great care, with fresh linens that had been blessed by the priest, herbs scattered on the floor to provide sweet scents, and candles placed to create a warm, gentle light that would ease the natural nervousness of the moment. Religious blessings of the marriage bed held central importance in medieval wedding traditions, reflecting the Church's teaching that marriage was a sacred sacrament ordained by God. Before the couple entered their chamber, a priest would bless the bed itself, sprinkling it with holy water and offering prayers for the couple's happiness, fertility, and spiritual growth. These blessings were not perfunctory rituals, but heartfelt invocations that recognized the sacred nature of marital union and the hope that physical love would be accompanied by spiritual growth and divine favor. The priest would often leave behind a small crucifix or religious medal to be placed near the bed, serving as a reminder of God's presence and blessing even in the most intimate moments of married life. The prayers offered during the blessing of the marriage bed were beautiful in their simplicity and profound in their meaning. The priest would ask for God's protection over the couple, that they might be safe from harm and free from the influence of evil spirits that were believed to be particularly active during times of transition and vulnerability. He would pray for their fertility, that they might be blessed with healthy children who would grow up to serve God in their community. Most touchingly, he would pray for their emotional and spiritual compatibility, that they might find joy in each other's company and grow together in wisdom and virtue throughout their married life. These prayers created a sense of sacred space around the marriage bed, transforming what might otherwise be merely a physical act into a spiritual communion blessed by divine grace. The role of witnesses in consummation was perhaps the most delicate aspect of medieval wedding traditions, requiring a careful balance between legal necessity and personal dignity. In noble families, where marriages often involved significant political or economic implications, there was sometimes a need for witnesses to confirm that the marriage had been properly consummated, thus ensuring its legal validity and preventing future disputes about inheritance or legitimacy. However, these witnesses were typically limited to trusted family members or close friends, and their presence was more symbolic than intrusive. Often, the witnesses would wait outside the chamber until called upon to confirm that the couple had indeed spent the night together, or they might simply observe the couple entering the chamber together and retiring for the night. The actual witnessing of consummation was handled with great sensitivity and respect for the couple's privacy. In most cases, the witnesses would not directly observe the intimate act itself, but would instead look for evidence such as the condition of the bed linens in the morning, or they might simply accept the couple's word that the marriage had been consummated. When direct witnessing was required, it was typically limited to the briefest possible confirmation, often involving no more than observing the couple in bed together before immediately withdrawing to allow them their privacy. The witnesses understood that their role was to provide legal protection for the marriage, not to satisfy curiosity or provide entertainment. Bridal chambers and their preparations represented one of the most beautiful aspects of medieval wedding traditions, reflecting the community's desire to create a space worthy of such an important moment. The preparation of the bridal chamber began weeks before the wedding, with female relatives and friends working together to create an environment that would be both beautiful and comfortable for the new couple. The chamber would be thoroughly cleaned and aired, with fresh rushes spread on the floor and scattered with herbs that would release pleasant scents when walked upon. Rose petals, lavender, and other fragrant flowers would be strewn about the room, creating an atmosphere of natural beauty and sweet fragrance that would help to calm nerves and create a sense of celebration. The bed itself was the centerpiece of the bridal chamber, prepared with the finest linens that the family could afford. These linens were often handmade by the bride herself during the months leading up to her wedding, representing hours of careful work and anticipation. The bed would be dressed with multiple layers of soft fabrics, including sheets made from the finest linen available, coverlets embroidered with symbols of love and fertility, and pillows filled with down or soft feathers. The bed frame might be decorated with garlands of flowers or ribbons, and the curtains around the bed would be drawn back to create an inviting and welcoming space. The lighting in the bridal chamber was carefully planned to create a warm, intimate atmosphere. Candles would be placed strategically around the room, providing enough light for the couple to see each other clearly while avoiding the harsh brightness that might make them feel exposed or uncomfortable. The candles used were often made from the finest beeswax, which burned with a clean, sweet scent that added to the overall sensory experience of the chamber. In wealthy households, oil lamps might be used instead of candles, providing a steadier, more controlled light that could be dimmed or brightened as needed. Medieval beliefs about fertility and conception played a crucial role in the preparation for and conduct of the wedding night. Medieval medicine, influenced by ancient Greek and Roman texts, as well as Islamic scholarship, held that conception was most likely to occur when both partners were in a state of physical and emotional harmony. This belief led to various practices designed to enhance fertility, including the consumption of certain foods and herbs that were thought to promote reproductive health. Honey, as we have discussed, was considered particularly beneficial for fertility, and couples would often consume honey or mead before retiring to their chamber. Other foods believed to enhance fertility included figs, pomegranates, and various nuts, all of which were rich in nutrients that modern science has confirmed to be important for reproductive health. The timing of the wedding night was also considered important for fertility. Medieval physicians believed that conception was more likely to occur during certain phases of the moon, and weddings were often timed to ensure that the wedding night would fall during a favorable lunar period. The bride's monthly cycle was also taken into consideration, with families attempting to time the wedding so that the consummation would occur during the period when conception was most likely. These considerations required careful planning and sometimes led to the postponement of weddings when the timing was not deemed favorable for fertility. The emotional preparation for the wedding night was considered just as important as the physical preparation. Mothers and other female relatives would spend time with the bride in the days leading up to the wedding, offering gentle instruction about what to expect and providing reassurance about the natural fears and anxieties that were normal for a young woman facing this new experience. These conversations were conducted with great sensitivity, acknowledging that the bride might be nervous while also emphasizing the joy and fulfillment that could come from married life. The goal was to help the bride approach her wedding night with confidence and positive anticipation rather than fear or dread. The morning after the wedding night held its own significance in medieval culture, marking the successful consummation of the marriage and the beginning of the couple's new life together. The proof of consummation was traditionally demonstrated by the blood-stained sheets from the marriage bed, which served as evidence of the bride's virginity and the successful completion of the marriage. This custom, while perhaps uncomfortable to modern sensibilities, served important legal and social functions in medieval society, providing protection for both the bride and groom against future challenges to the validity of their marriage. The presentation of these sheets was typically done with great ceremony, often involving the bride's mother or other female relatives who would display them to the assembled family members as evidence of the marriage's consummation. The celebration that followed the morning after was a joyful recognition of the couple's successful transition from single life to married life. Family members would gather to congratulate the couple and to share in the happiness of this new beginning. Special foods might be prepared for the couple's first breakfast as husband and wife, often including items that were considered particularly nourishing or symbolically significant. Eggs were commonly served, representing fertility and new life, while bread made from the finest flour symbolized prosperity and abundance. The couple might also be presented with gifts that were specifically chosen for their married life, such as household items or personal possessions that would help them establish their new home together. The privacy and intimacy of the wedding night were carefully balanced with the community's need to witness and celebrate the beginning of the marriage. While the most intimate moments remained private between husband and wife, the community's involvement in the surrounding rituals served to integrate the couple into the larger social fabric and to provide them with the support and blessing they would need for their married life. The bedding ceremony, the blessing of the marriage bed, and the morning after celebration all served to mark the wedding night as a sacred transition that was both deeply personal and socially significant. The tender care with which these rituals were conducted reveals the medieval understanding that the wedding night was a moment of profound vulnerability and importance for both partners. The community's role was not to intrude upon or exploit this vulnerability, but to provide support, blessing, and protection during this crucial transition. The elaborate preparations, the careful attention to privacy, and the gentle guidance provided by family members all reflect a sophisticated understanding of the psychological and emotional needs of newly married couples. In our modern world, where wedding nights are often treated as purely private matters with little community support or guidance, perhaps there is wisdom to be found in the medieval approach of balancing privacy with community blessing and support. As we reflect on these ancient customs, we can see how the medieval wedding night was designed to honor both the sacred and human dimensions of marriage. The religious blessings acknowledge the spiritual significance of the union, while the careful attention to comfort and privacy respected the deeply personal nature of physical intimacy. The community's involvement provided support and witness without intrusion, creating a framework that helped nervous couples navigate one of the most significant moments of their lives. These traditions remind us that the wedding night has always been understood as more than just a physical act, but as a sacred threshold between one stage of life and another, deserving of reverence, celebration, and gentle care. Chapter 3. The Merchant's Journey, Honeymoons of the Rising Middle Class Friends. As we continue our gentle journey through the chambers of medieval marriage, we find ourselves stepping into a world that was slowly changing, where the rigid boundaries of feudal society were beginning to soften under the influence of growing trade and commerce. The rise of the merchant class in medieval Europe brought with it new possibilities for love, marriage, and the precious month that followed the wedding vows. These merchants, with their expanding wealth and broader horizons, began to reimagine what a honeymoon could be, transforming it from a quiet month spent in familiar chambers to an adventure that could span countries and cultures. Tonight, let us walk alongside these merchant couples as they embarked on journeys that would have seemed impossible to their grandparents, carrying with them not just their newfound love, but the spirit of exploration that was beginning to reshape the medieval world. The growing merchant wealth of the 13th and 14th centuries created unprecedented opportunities for couples to experience their honeymoon in ways that previous generations could never have imagined. Successful merchants accumulated resources that far exceeded those of many minor nobles, and with this wealth came the freedom to make choices about how to spend their most precious time. A wool merchant from Bruges might have accumulated enough silver to afford a journey to the great trading centers of Italy, while a spice trader from Venice could finance a pilgrimage to the Holy Land that would serve as both a spiritual journey and a honeymoon adventure. These merchants understood that their wealth was not merely for accumulation, but for creating experiences that would enrich their lives and strengthen their marriages in ways that staying close to home could never accomplish. The merchant class approached their honeymoon planning with the same careful attention to detail that made them successful in business. They would spend months preparing for their journey, consulting with fellow merchants who had traveled the routes they planned to take, gathering information about the best accommodations, the safest times to travel, and the most worthwhile destinations to visit. These preparations were not merely practical, but deeply romantic, as couples would pore over maps together, dream about the places they would visit, and imagine the memories they would create in distant lands. The anticipation of the journey became almost as important as the journey itself, providing the couple with months of shared planning and excitement that brought them closer together even before they departed. Travel accommodations in medieval Europe were far more sophisticated than many people imagine, particularly for those with the means to afford better lodging. The merchant class had access to a network of comfortable inns, monastery guest houses, and private lodging arrangements that made extended travel not just possible, but genuinely pleasant. These accommodations were often connected to the same trade networks that had made the merchants wealthy in the first place, creating a system of mutual support and hospitality that extended across national boundaries. A merchant honeymoon couple traveling from London to Paris could expect to find clean beds, good food, and secure shelter at regular intervals along their route, often staying in establishments that catered specifically to travelers of their social class and economic status. The finest inns along the major trade routes offered amenities that would surprise modern travelers with their comfort and sophistication. Private chambers with real beds, clean linens, and even glass windows were available to those who could afford them. Some inns provided heated rooms during cold months, hot meals prepared by skilled cooks, and even entertainment in the form of musicians or storytellers who would gather guests in the common areas during the evening hours. For honeymoon couples, these inns often offered special accommodations, including rooms that were decorated with flowers, meals that featured aphrodisiac foods believed to enhance romance, and the kind of privacy that allowed couples to continue their intimate bonding even while traveling far from home. Monastery guest houses represented another important category of accommodation for traveling merchant couples. These religious establishments had a long tradition of providing hospitality to travelers, and many had developed sophisticated systems for housing and feeding guests of various social classes. For merchant couples, monastery guest houses offered not just practical accommodation, but also spiritual enrichment, as couples could participate in religious services, receive blessings for their marriage, and experience the profound peace that came from spending time in sacred surroundings. The monks and nuns who ran these establishments often took special care of honeymoon couples, understanding that these newlyweds were at a crucial stage of their spiritual as well as romantic development. Pilgrimage routes as honeymoon destinations represented a perfect fusion of the spiritual and romantic impulses that drove medieval society. The great pilgrimage routes of medieval Europe, such as the Camino de Santiago in Spain or the Via Francigena leading to Rome, provided a structured framework for honeymoon travel that satisfied both the medieval desire for spiritual merit and the merchant class's appetite for adventure and cultural experience. These routes were well established, with regular stopping points, reliable accommodations, and the safety that came from traveling in the company of other pilgrims. For merchant couples, embarking on a pilgrimage honeymoon was a way to begin their marriage with a shared spiritual journey that would create memories and bonds that would last throughout their lives. The pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela in northwestern Spain was particularly popular among merchant couples, as it combined spiritual significance with passage through some of the most beautiful and culturally rich regions of medieval Europe. The journey from France across the Pyrenees and through the kingdoms of northern Spain could take several months, providing ample time for couples to grow closer while experiencing the challenges and rewards of long-distance travel. Along the way, they would encounter other pilgrims from across Europe, creating opportunities for cultural exchange and the formation of friendships that might prove valuable in future business dealings. The Cathedral of Santiago itself, with its magnificent architecture and sacred relics provided a fitting climax to the journey, offering couples a profound spiritual experience that would mark their honeymoon as truly extraordinary. The route to Rome, known as the Via Francigena, offered another popular pilgrimage destination for merchant honeymoon couples. This ancient road, which connected Canterbury in England to Rome via France and Switzerland, provided travelers with an opportunity to experience the full diversity of medieval European culture. Couples would pass through great cities like Reims, Lausanne, and Lucca, each offering its own unique attractions and opportunities for cultural enrichment. The journey culminated in Rome itself, where couples could visit the great basilicas, receive papal blessings, and experience the awe-inspiring grandeur of the Eternal City. For merchant couples, who were often well-educated and culturally sophisticated, the artistic and architectural treasures of Rome provided a honeymoon experience that was both spiritually meaningful and intellectually stimulating. Trading posts and guild houses served as crucial stopping points for merchant couples on their honeymoon journeys, providing not just accommodation, but also business opportunities and social connections that could benefit the couple's future prosperity. These establishments were often owned and operated by merchant guilds, creating a network of mutual support that extended across national boundaries. A cloth merchant from Flanders, traveling through Italy on his honeymoon, could expect to find welcome at guild houses in Milan, Florence, and Venice, where he would be treated as a respected colleague rather than a mere traveler. These guild houses often provided the finest accommodations available, with private chambers, excellent food, and the kind of security that allowed couples to travel with valuable goods and money without excessive worry about theft or robbery. The social aspect of staying at guild houses was particularly important for honeymoon couples, as it provided them with opportunities to meet other merchant families and to form the kind of social connections that were essential for business success in medieval Europe. Evening meals at guild houses were often elaborate affairs with multiple courses, fine wines, and extended conversation that allowed travelers to share news, exchange business information, and form lasting friendships. For honeymoon couples, these social gatherings provided a chance to practice the kind of joint social skills that would be essential for their future success as a married couple in the merchant community. Learning to present themselves as a unified social unit, to engage in the kind of sophisticated conversation that merchant society expected, and to navigate the complex social hierarchies of medieval commerce were all valuable skills that could be developed during their honeymoon travels. The emergence of leisure travel for newlyweds represented a significant cultural shift in medieval society, as the merchant class began to view travel not just as a necessity for business or spiritual purposes, but as a source of pleasure and enrichment in its own right. This development was closely connected to the growing wealth and sophistication of the merchant class, as well as their increasing exposure to different cultures and ways of life through their business activities. Merchant couples began to plan journeys that were designed primarily for enjoyment and education, visiting places of natural beauty, cultural significance, or historical interest, simply for the pleasure of experiencing them together. This represented a revolutionary approach to honeymoon travel, one that emphasized personal fulfillment and shared adventure rather than purely practical or spiritual goals. The Italian city-states were particularly popular destinations for merchant couples seeking leisure travel experiences. Cities like Venice, Florence, and Genoa offered a combination of cultural sophistication, artistic achievement, and commercial prosperity that appealed strongly to the merchant mindset. Couples could spend weeks exploring the great palaces, churches, and markets of these cities, experiencing the cutting-edge art and architecture that was beginning to emerge from the early Renaissance. Venice, with its unique geography and exotic connections to the Byzantine Empire and the Islamic world, offered particularly rich opportunities for cultural exploration. Couples could ride in gondolas through the canals, visit the great Basilica of San Marco with its stunning Byzantine mosaics, and shop for luxury goods from across the known world in the city's famous markets. The Champagne fairs in France represented another important destination for merchant honeymoon couples, combining business opportunities with social and cultural experiences. These great trade fairs, held annually in cities like Troyes, Provence, and Reims, brought together merchants from across Europe for several weeks of intensive trading activity. For merchant couples, attending these fairs during their honeymoon provided opportunities to conduct business, make valuable contacts, and experience the excitement of one of medieval Europe's most important commercial events. The fairs were also social occasions, with elaborate entertainment, feasting, and celebration that provided couples with memorable experiences and the chance to see their business community at its most prosperous and optimistic. The practical challenges of honeymoon travel for merchant couples were significant, but not insurmountable. Travel in medieval Europe was slow, sometimes dangerous, and always expensive, requiring careful planning and considerable resources. Couples needed to arrange for the security of their homes and businesses while they were away, often leaving trusted employees or family members in charge of their affairs. They needed to carry sufficient money for their journey while also protecting themselves from the very real risk of robbery or extortion. Most importantly, they needed to plan their route carefully, ensuring that they would have reliable accommodations and safe passage throughout their journey. Despite these challenges, the rewards of honeymoon travel were considered well worth the effort and expense involved. The impact of honeymoon travel on merchant marriages was profound and lasting. Couples who had shared the challenges and adventures of extended travel developed bonds of trust and cooperation that served them well throughout their married lives. They had tested each other's character under difficult circumstances, learned to work together as a team, and created shared memories that would sustain them through future challenges. The cultural experiences they had shared broadened their perspectives and gave them stories and insights that would enrich their social lives for years to come. Perhaps most importantly, they had demonstrated to themselves and their community that their marriage was built on more than just economic convenience or family arrangement, but on genuine partnership and mutual support. The influence of merchant honeymoon travel on medieval society extended far beyond the couples themselves. These traveled couples returned to their home communities with new ideas, products, and perspectives that helped to drive the cultural and economic development of medieval Europe. They brought back artistic objects, architectural ideas, and business practices that they had encountered during their travels, contributing to the gradual transformation of medieval society from a collection of isolated local communities into an interconnected network of trading centers and cultural exchange points. The stories of their adventures inspired other couples to undertake similar journeys, gradually expanding the community of well-traveled merchant families and creating a new model for what marriage and honeymoon could be. The merchant honeymoon also played an important role in the development of the European hospitality industry, as more merchant couples began to travel for pleasure, as well as business. Inns and other accommodations began to cater specifically to their needs and preferences. This led to improvements in the quality of food, lodging, and entertainment available to travelers, as well as the development of new services designed to make travel more comfortable and enjoyable. The economic impact of this honeymoon travel was significant, as merchant couples were typically willing to pay premium prices for superior accommodations and services, providing innkeepers and other hospitality workers with strong incentives to improve their offerings. As we reflect on these merchant honeymoon journeys, we can see how they represented both continuity and change in medieval society. They maintained the traditional emphasis on the honeymoon as a time for couples to bond and establish their relationship, but they expanded the possibilities for how this bonding could occur. Instead of spending their month in quiet domestic settings, merchant couples could share adventures that would challenge them, broaden their horizons, and create memories that would last a lifetime. They could combine the practical benefits of business travel with the emotional rewards of romantic adventure, creating a new model for how successful couples could begin their married lives. In our modern world, where travel has become commonplace and the merchant class has evolved into a broader middle class, perhaps we can find inspiration in these medieval couples who dared to dream beyond the conventional boundaries of their time and created honeymoon experiences that were both adventurous and deeply meaningful. Chapter 4: Noble Pleasures. Aristocratic honeymoon traditions. Friends, we now ascend the spiraling stone steps of medieval society to enter the rarefied world of noble marriages, where honeymoons were not mere months of quiet adjustment, but elaborate spectacles that could span entire seasons and encompass territories that stretched across multiple kingdoms. In the great halls of medieval castles, where tapestries told stories of ancient heroes and countless candles cast dancing shadows on stone walls, the aristocratic honeymoon unfolded as a carefully orchestrated display of power, culture, and refinement. Here in these elevated circles, the month of honey took on dimensions that peasants and merchants could scarcely imagine, becoming not just a time of personal bonding, but a statement of political alliance, cultural sophistication, and dynastic ambition. Tonight, let us wander through these marble corridors and silk-draped chambers where love and politics intertwined like golden threads in the richest tapestries. Castle-based celebrations and extended festivities transformed the noble honeymoon into something resembling a mobile court, where the celebration of marriage became an opportunity to display the full magnificence of aristocratic power and cultural refinement. Unlike the modest celebrations of lower social classes, noble honeymoons could extend for months, moving from castle to castle within the family's territories, with each location offering its own unique entertainments and opportunities for the couple to be honored by their subjects and peers. These extended celebrations required enormous resources and careful planning, as each castle needed to be prepared to host not just the newlywed couple, but often hundreds of guests, including other nobles, clergy, artists, and entertainers who would travel with the honeymoon party, as it progressed through the realm. The preparation for these castle-based celebrations began months before the wedding itself, with stewards and household managers working to ensure that each location would be properly supplied with food, wine, entertainment, and accommodation for the expected guests. Castles that had not hosted major celebrations in years would be thoroughly cleaned and refurbished, with new tapestries hung, floors cleaned, and rushes replaced. And gardens tended to ensure that they would provide appropriate settings for the romantic and ceremonial activities that would take place during the honeymoon visit. The kitchens of each castle would be stocked with the finest ingredients available, including exotic spices, rare wines, and delicacies that would demonstrate the family's wealth and international connections to their guests. The progression from castle to castle followed a carefully planned itinerary that took into account not just the logistical challenges of moving large numbers of people and supplies, but also the political and social significance of each location. The honeymoon couple would typically begin their journey at the groom's primary castle, where they would be formally presented to their subjects as the new lord and lady of the realm. From there, they would progress to other family holdings, often visiting the bride's family castles as well, creating opportunities for the two families to strengthen their bonds and for the couple to be recognized as legitimate rulers throughout their combined territories. Each visit would last several days or even weeks, allowing time for elaborate entertainments, formal ceremonies, and the kind of intimate socializing that built the personal relationships essential to medieval political success. The daily routine during these castle-based celebrations followed a rhythm that balanced public ceremony with private pleasure, ensuring that the honeymoon couple could fulfill their social obligations while also enjoying the personal time necessary for their relationship to develop. Mornings typically began with formal audiences, where the couple would receive petitions from their subjects, hear reports from their administrators, and conduct the business of government that was essential to maintaining their authority. These morning sessions also provided opportunities for the couple to demonstrate their wisdom and justice, building their reputation as capable rulers who deserved the loyalty and respect of their people. The formal nature of these proceedings helped to establish the couple's authority while also giving them practice in working together as a governing team. Afternoons were often devoted to more recreational activities, though these too served important social and political functions. The castle's great hall would be transformed into a center of entertainment, with musicians, storytellers, and other performers providing cultural enrichment for the assembled guests. These entertainments were not merely for pleasure, but served to demonstrate the family's cultural sophistication and their ability to attract and support the finest artists of their time. The presence of renowned troubadours, skilled musicians, and learned poets enhanced the family's reputation and provided the kind of cultural atmosphere that was expected at the highest levels of medieval society. Evenings brought the most elaborate entertainments, with feasts that could last for hours and featured dozens of courses prepared by skilled cooks who had been brought in specially for the occasion. These feasts were carefully choreographed events that served multiple purposes beyond mere nourishment. They provided opportunities for the display of wealth through the use of expensive ingredients, elaborate presentation, and costly serving vessels. They also served as forums for political discussion and alliance building, as guests from different regions and social levels could interact in the relatively relaxed atmosphere of shared dining. For the honeymoon couple, These evening feasts provided chances to practice the complex social skills needed for successful leadership, learning to navigate the intricate web of relationships and obligations that characterized medieval noble society. Hunting parties and courtly entertainments represented some of the most distinctively aristocratic aspects of noble honeymoon celebrations, activities that were virtually impossible for lower social classes to enjoy, but which were considered essential elements of proper noble culture. Medieval hunting was far more than a simple recreational activity. It was a complex ritual that demonstrated courage, skill, and the ability to control both nature and human society. For honeymoon couples, participating in hunting parties provided opportunities to display their physical prowess, their ability to work together as a team, and their mastery of the sophisticated skills that were expected of their social class. The hunt also served as a metaphor for the successful pursuit and capture of appropriate marriage partners, making it a particularly fitting activity for newlyweds to enjoy together. The preparation for a major hunting party required extensive planning and coordination, involving not just the honeymoon couple, but dozens of servants, huntsmen, and support staff who would ensure that the expedition would be both successful and safe. The couple would be provided with the finest hunting equipment available, including specially bred horses, carefully maintained weapons, and elegant clothing designed to be both practical and impressive. The hunting party would typically include other nobles and their retinues, creating opportunities for social interaction and alliance building, while also providing the safety and companionship that made these expeditions enjoyable rather than merely dangerous. The presence of skilled huntsmen and guides ensured that even relatively inexperienced participants could enjoy the thrill of the hunt while minimizing the risks involved. The actual hunting experience combined physical challenge with elaborate ceremony, as the party would set out from the castle in a carefully organized procession that displayed the wealth and power of the hosting family. The honeymoon couple would ride at the head of the procession, often dressed in matching colors or complementary outfits that emphasized their unity as a married pair. The hunt itself would be conducted according to strict protocols that governed everything from the types of animals that could be pursued to the proper procedures for making kills and distributing the meat afterward. These protocols served not just practical purposes, but also reinforced the social hierarchies and cultural values that were fundamental to medieval aristocratic society. The conclusion of a successful hunt provided opportunities for celebration and gift-giving that strengthened the social bonds between the honeymoon couple and their guests. The meat from the hunt would be distributed according to established customs, with the choicest portions going to the most honored guests, and the remainder being shared among the participants according to their social rank. This distribution process served as a practical demonstration of the couple's generosity and their understanding of proper social obligations. The evening following a successful hunt would typically feature a special feast showcasing the day's catch, along with entertainments that celebrated the couple's skill and success in the field. The role of troubadours and musical celebrations in noble honeymoon traditions cannot be overstated, as these artistic elements provided both entertainment and cultural legitimacy to the extended celebrations. Troubadours were not merely entertainers, but skilled artists who served as repositories of cultural knowledge, political commentary, and romantic inspiration. Their presence at honeymoon celebrations added an element of sophistication and cultural refinement that was essential to the image that noble families wanted to project. The songs and stories performed by troubadours during honeymoon festivities often focused on themes of love, loyalty, and adventure that were particularly appropriate for newlywed couples, providing both entertainment and gentle instruction in the ideals of courtly love and noble marriage. The selection of troubadours for honeymoon celebrations required careful consideration, as these artists would be performing for audiences that included not just the honeymoon couple, but also their families, guests, and political allies. The most skilled and renowned troubadours were in high demand and commanded substantial fees, but their presence could significantly enhance the reputation of the hosting family and provide memorable experiences for all the guests. Some noble families maintained troubadours as permanent members of their households, while others would hire traveling performers specifically for special occasions like honeymoon celebrations. The quality and reputation of the troubadours present at a honeymoon celebration served as a reflection of the family's cultural sophistication and their ability to attract the finest artists of their time. The musical performances during noble honeymoon celebrations followed sophisticated patterns that balanced entertainment with instruction and inspiration. Morning performances might feature gentle, melodious pieces designed to create a peaceful and romantic atmosphere as the couple began their daily activities. Afternoon entertainments could include more complex musical pieces that demonstrated the technical skill of the performers, while also providing opportunities for guests to engage in conversation and social interaction. Evening performances were often the most elaborate, featuring dramatic songs and stories that could hold the attention of large audiences, while also providing appropriate themes for the celebration of marriage and new beginnings. The content of troubadour performances during honeymoon celebrations was carefully chosen to reflect the values and aspirations of noble society, while also providing appropriate entertainment for the mixed audiences that typically attended these events. Songs of courtly love provided romantic inspiration for the honeymoon couple, while also reinforcing the ideals of chivalry and noble behavior that were expected of their social class. Epic tales of heroic adventures offered entertainment for male guests, while also providing models of courage and honor that were relevant to the couple's future roles as leaders and defenders of their realm. Religious songs and stories provided spiritual edification appropriate for the sacred nature of marriage, while also demonstrating the family's piety and commitment to Christian values. Falconry and other noble pursuits for couples represented some of the most refined and sophisticated activities available to medieval aristocrats, requiring not just wealth and leisure, but also extensive training and cultural knowledge. Falconry was considered the most noble of all hunting arts, requiring patience, skill, and a deep understanding of the natural world that was seen as appropriate for the highest levels of society. For honeymoon couples, learning to work together in the training and handling of hunting birds provided opportunities to develop the kind of subtle communication and mutual support that were essential for successful marriages. The birds themselves were valuable possessions that served as symbols of the family's wealth and status, while the skill required to train and handle them demonstrated the couple's education and refinement. The practice of falconry during honeymoon celebrations involved much more than simply releasing trained birds to hunt prey. The couple would work with skilled falconers to learn the complex techniques required for proper bird handling, including the proper ways to carry and release the birds, the signals and commands used to direct their hunting, and the procedures for caring for and maintaining the bird's health and training. These skills required patience, practice, and careful attention to detail, making falconry an ideal activity for couples who wanted to spend time together while also developing valuable abilities that would serve them well in their future roles as noble leaders. The social aspects of falconry added another dimension to its appeal as a honeymoon activity, as falconry expeditions typically involved groups of participants who would work together to locate and pursue appropriate prey. These group activities provided opportunities for the honeymoon couple to interact with their peers in a relatively relaxed and informal setting, building the personal relationships that were essential for political success in medieval society. The shared challenges and successes of falconry expeditions created bonds of camaraderie and mutual respect that could last for years, providing the couple with a network of allies and friends who would support them throughout their married life. Other noble pursuits available to honeymoon couples included chess and other board games that required strategic thinking and careful planning, skills that were directly relevant to their future roles as political leaders. These intellectual pursuits provided opportunities for couples to engage in friendly competition while also developing their analytical abilities and learning to anticipate and respond to their partner's strategies and preferences. The playing of chess during honeymoon celebrations was often elevated to the level of formal tournament, with elaborate rules and ceremonies that transformed simple games into sophisticated social events that reflected the cultural refinement of the participants. Gift-giving traditions and dowry displays during noble honeymoon celebrations served multiple purposes beyond simple generosity, functioning as important mechanisms for establishing social relationships, demonstrating wealth and status, and creating the economic foundation for the couple's future prosperity. The gifts exchanged during these celebrations were typically far more elaborate and valuable than those given at lower social levels, often including precious metals, rare gems, exotic fabrics, and other luxury items that demonstrated the giver's wealth and the recipient's worthiness. These gifts were presented according to strict protocols that reinforced social hierarchies, while also creating opportunities for displays of generosity and gratitude that strengthened political alliances and family bonds. The dowry displays that accompanied noble honeymoon celebrations were elaborate exhibitions of the bride's family's wealth and their commitment to the success of the marriage. These displays typically included not just the monetary value of the dowry, but also household goods, clothing, jewelry, and other possessions that would help the couple establish their new household in appropriate style. The presentation of these items was often choreographed as a formal ceremony, with each item being displayed and described for the assembled guests, creating opportunities for the bride's family to demonstrate their generosity, while also showcasing the economic foundation that would support the couple's future prosperity. The gifts received by the honeymoon couple during their extended celebrations created obligations and expectations that would influence their behavior and decisions for years to come. Valuable gifts from political allies carried with them implicit expectations of future support and cooperation, while gifts from family members reinforced bonds of kinship and mutual obligation. The couple's response to these gifts, including their expressions of gratitude and their future reciprocal generosity, would be carefully observed and remembered by their social circle, making the proper handling of gift-giving relationships an essential skill for successful noble marriages. Multi-castle tours and territorial visits represented the most ambitious and politically significant aspect of noble honeymoon celebrations, transforming the personal celebration of marriage into a grand progress that demonstrated the extent of the family's power and influence, while also providing opportunities for the couple to establish their authority throughout their combined territories. These tours could last for months and cover hundreds of miles, requiring enormous logistical coordination and substantial financial resources. The progression from castle to castle served not just ceremonial purposes, but also practical ones, allowing the couple to inspect their holdings, meet with their administrators, and address any problems or challenges that required their personal attention. The planning of these multi-castle tours required careful consideration of political, logistical, and seasonal factors that could affect the success of the journey. The route would be planned to maximize the political impact of the couple's appearances, while also ensuring that adequate accommodation and supplies would be available at each stopping point. The timing of the tour would take into account weather conditions, agricultural cycles, and other factors that could affect travel conditions and the availability of local resources. The size and composition of the traveling party would be carefully calculated to provide appropriate ceremony and security while avoiding the excessive costs and logistical challenges that could arise from overly large entourages. The reception given to the honeymoon couple at each castle on their tour provided opportunities for local subjects to demonstrate their loyalty and respect, while also allowing the couple to assess the condition of their holdings and the effectiveness of their local administrators. These receptions typically included formal ceremonies of homage, during which local nobles and officials would renew their oaths of loyalty to the couple and present reports on local conditions and concerns. The couple's response to these ceremonies, including their demonstrations of justice, generosity, and wisdom, would be carefully observed and discussed throughout the region, making these visits crucial opportunities for establishing their reputation as capable and worthy rulers. The cultural and social impact of these multi-castle tours extended far beyond the immediate participants, as the passage of the honeymoon couple and their entourage through the countryside provided opportunities for ordinary people to witness the pageantry and magnificence of noble culture. The processions that moved from castle to castle were often elaborate spectacles that included hundreds of participants, colorful banners, fine horses, and other displays of wealth and power that impressed observers and reinforced the social hierarchies that governed medieval society. These public displays served important political functions by demonstrating the stability and prosperity of the ruling family, while also providing entertainment and excitement for people whose daily lives offered few opportunities for such spectacular experiences. As we reflect on these aristocratic honeymoon traditions, we can see how they served multiple purposes beyond the simple celebration of marriage, functioning as important mechanisms for political alliance building, cultural expression, and social control. The elaborate entertainments, extended celebrations, and territorial tours that characterized noble honeymoons were not merely expressions of personal happiness, but carefully orchestrated displays of power and sophistication that reinforced the legitimacy of aristocratic rule, while also providing the couple with opportunities to develop the skills and relationships they would need for successful leadership. These traditions remind us that in medieval society, even the most personal and intimate aspects of life were shaped by broader social, political, and cultural forces that connected individual experiences to the larger patterns of history and human civilization. Chapter 5: The Peasants' Celebration and Simple. Joys and Community Bonds. In the gentle rolling hills of medieval countryside, where stone cottages dotted the landscape like scattered seeds. A different kind of honeymoon unfolded. Here, among the peasant families who formed the backbone of medieval society, the celebration of new marriage was woven seamlessly into the fabric of daily life, creating a tapestry of joy that was both humble and profound. The peasant's honeymoon was not marked by grand journeys or lavish feasts, but rather by the quiet beauty of shared purpose, community embrace, and the simple pleasures that made life worth living. The village itself became the stage for these intimate celebrations. Picture, if you will, a small cluster of homes surrounded by fields that stretched toward distant forests. The air carried the scent of wood smoke from cooking fires, the gentle lowing of cattle, and the distant sound of children at play. In this setting, the newly married couple would begin their life together, not in isolation, but surrounded by the warm embrace of their community. The village was their world, and within its boundaries, they would discover the particular rhythm of married life among the common folk. Village-based honeymoon traditions were deeply rooted in the agricultural calendar and the collective wisdom of generations. Unlike the noble classes who might retreat to private chambers or embark on pilgrimages, peasant couples found their honeymoon period naturally integrated into the seasonal flow of rural life. The timing of their marriage often coincided with periods of relative calm in the farming schedule, perhaps after the spring planting or during the lull between harvests. This careful timing ensured that the community could participate fully in the celebration without compromising the essential work that sustained them all. The village green, with its ancient oak tree and worn stone well, served as the natural gathering place for these celebrations. Here, beneath the spreading branches that had witnessed countless generations of joy and sorrow, the newly married couple would receive the blessings and good wishes of their neighbors. The traditions that unfolded in this sacred space were passed down through generations, each family adding their own touches while maintaining the essential elements that bound the community together. There was a beautiful simplicity to these customs, a recognition that true happiness came not from material wealth, but from the bonds of love and mutual support that held the village together. One of the most cherished traditions was the blessing walk, where the newly married couple would stroll together through the village, stopping at each household to receive small gifts and words of encouragement. These gifts were modest by noble standards, but precious in their own right. Perhaps a handful of early spring flowers, a small loaf of bread baked with special herbs, or a simple wooden spoon carved by a neighbor's skilled hands. Each gift carried with it the giver's hopes for the couple's future happiness and prosperity. The walk itself was leisurely, allowing time for conversation and the sharing of stories that would weave the couple more deeply into the community's collective memory. The harvest festivals and seasonal celebrations provided natural opportunities for honeymoon festivities to blend with broader community joy. When a couple married during the harvest season, their honeymoon became part of the great celebration of the year's bounty. The fields, golden with grain and heavy with the promise of winter's sustenance, provided a backdrop of abundance and hope. The newly married pair would work alongside their neighbors, their hands joining in the ancient rhythm of scythe and sickle, their laughter mingling with the songs that made the hard work bearable. In these moments, the line between celebration and labor dissolved, creating a unique form of honeymoon that was both practical and deeply meaningful. The seasonal celebrations that marked the medieval calendar provided natural frameworks for these extended honeymoons. The spring fertility festivals, with their emphasis on renewal and growth, offered perfect opportunities for newly married couples to receive the community's blessings for their own fertility and prosperity. The summer solstice celebrations, with their bonfires and dancing, provided venues for the couple to participate in ancient rituals that connected them to the eternal cycles of nature. The autumn harvest festivals allowed them to contribute to the community's work while celebrating their own new beginning. Even the winter celebrations, with their focus on warmth and togetherness during the dark months, offered special opportunities for the couple to demonstrate their commitment to each other and to the community that sheltered them. The role of the extended family and community in these peasant honeymoons cannot be overstated. In a world where individual privacy was a luxury few could afford, the newly married couple found themselves surrounded by a network of support that was both comforting and occasionally overwhelming. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and neighbors all had roles to play in welcoming the couple into their new status. The extended family, in particular, took on the responsibility of ensuring that the couple understood their new obligations and had the practical knowledge they needed to succeed in married life. The older women of the village, with their years of experience in managing households and raising children, would take the new bride under their collective wing. In the soft light of evening, as the day's work wound down, these women would gather in the cottage where the couple made their home. Their voices would weave together in gentle conversation, sharing the accumulated wisdom of generations. They spoke of the rhythms of married life, the importance of patience and understanding, the practical skills needed to manage a household on limited resources. Their words carried the weight of experience and the warmth of genuine affection, creating a supportive environment where the young bride could ask questions and receive guidance without judgment. Similarly, the men of the village would take the new husband into their circle, sharing their own knowledge about providing for a family, maintaining a home, and finding one's place in the community's social structure. These conversations often took place while working in the fields or gathered around the village forge, where the rhythm of honest labor provided a natural backdrop for the sharing of masculine wisdom. The older men spoke of the responsibilities of marriage, the importance of being a good provider and protector, the ways in which a man's identity evolved when he took on the role of husband. Their guidance was practical and heartfelt, rooted in the realities of rural life and the understanding that marriage was not just a personal commitment, but a contribution to the community's strength and continuity. The community's involvement extended beyond advice and guidance to include practical support that made the honeymoon period possible. Neighbors would often take on additional responsibilities to give the newly married couple time to adjust to their new life together. A neighbor might tend to the couple's animals for a few days, or help with the more demanding agricultural tasks that required immediate attention. This collective support created a cushion of time and space that allowed the couple to focus on each other and on establishing the patterns that would define their married life. The simple pleasures that characterized peasant honeymoons were perhaps their most beautiful aspect. Without the resources for elaborate entertainments or exotic destinations, these couples discovered joy in the most fundamental human experiences. Walking together through the familiar landscapes of their childhood, they would see their surroundings with new eyes, finding beauty in the play of light on water, the song of birds in the hedgerows, the changing colors of the seasons. These walks became a form of meditation, a time for quiet conversation, and the gradual process of learning to see the world through each other's eyes. The act of walking together held special significance in peasant culture. In a world where most people rarely traveled beyond their immediate surroundings, the simple act of exploring the familiar countryside as a married couple took on profound meaning. They would discover secret places that perhaps only children knew, quiet clearings in the woods where wildflowers grew in profusion, hidden streams where the water ran clear and cold. These discoveries became part of their shared history, places that would hold special meaning throughout their married life. The rhythm of walking together, matching their steps, and adjusting their pace to accommodate each other became a metaphor for the compromises and adjustments that would characterize their marriage. Talking, that most basic form of human connection, became a central pleasure of the peasant honeymoon. Without the distractions of elaborate entertainment or the pressure of maintaining social appearances, the couple had the luxury of simply getting to know each other more deeply. They would share stories of their childhood, their dreams for the future, their fears and hopes. These conversations often took place during the long evenings when the day's work was done and the household had settled into quietude. By the light of a single candle or the glow of embers in the fireplace, they would discover the contours of each other's personality, learning the subtle ways in which their partner's mind worked, the particular phrases that made them laugh, the subjects that sparked their passion or concern. The sharing of meals took on special significance during these honeymoon periods. The preparation of food became a collaborative effort, with the couple working together to create the simple but nourishing meals that sustained rural life. The new bride might demonstrate her skills in bread making, her hands kneading the dough with practiced motions, while her husband tended the fire and prepared the simple vegetables that would accompany their meal. These shared meals were opportunities for intimate conversation, for the establishment of domestic routines, and for the creation of the small rituals that would define their household. The food itself, though simple, carried deep meaning. A loaf of bread baked by the bride's own hands represented her ability to provide for her family. A soup made from vegetables grown in their own garden demonstrated their connection to the land and their ability to work together toward common goals. The sharing of these humble meals created bonds that were perhaps stronger than those forged at the most elaborate noble feasts, for they were built on the foundation of mutual effort and shared purpose. Work and celebration combined in ways that might seem foreign to modern sensibilities, but were perfectly natural in medieval peasant life. The couple's honeymoon period did not excuse them from the essential tasks that sustained their household and their community. Instead, these tasks became opportunities for celebration and bonding. The daily milking of the cow became a chance for quiet conversation and gentle teasing. The tending of the vegetable garden provided opportunities for the couple to work side by side, their hands dirty from the earth, their backs bent to the same task, their goals aligned in the most fundamental way. The rhythm of agricultural work provided structure to these honeymoon periods. The early morning tasks, performed while the dew still clung to the grass and the air was cool and fresh, became opportunities for the couple to begin each day together. The midday rest, when the sun was high and the work was temporarily set aside, provided time for intimate conversation and the sharing of simple meals. The evening tasks, performed as the light began to fade and the day's heat gave way to coolness, became opportunities for reflection and the gentle planning of the next day's activities. This integration of work and celebration created a unique form of honeymoon that was both practical and deeply romantic. The couple learned to find joy in the most mundane tasks, to see beauty in the rhythm of daily life, to discover the profound satisfaction that comes from working together toward common goals. Their love was not expressed through grand gestures or expensive gifts, but through the countless small acts of cooperation and mutual support that made their shared life possible. The blessing of the fields and home represented the spiritual dimension of peasant honeymoons. In a world where the line between the sacred and the secular was often blurred, the couple's new marriage was understood to require divine blessing to prosper. The local priest, if available, would often visit the couple's home during their honeymoon period to offer prayers for their happiness and prosperity. These blessings were simple but heartfelt, invoking divine protection for the couple and their future children, asking for abundant harvests and protection from the various misfortunes that could befall a rural household. The blessing of the fields carried particular significance in agricultural communities. The couple would walk together through the plots of land that would sustain them, perhaps carrying a small container of holy water or a simple wooden cross. As they moved through the fields, they would offer prayers for good weather, abundant harvests, and protection from the various pests and diseases that could destroy their crops. This ritual connected their marriage to the land itself, making their union part of the eternal cycle of planting, growing, and harvesting that defined rural life. The blessing of the home was equally important, for it was here that the couple would build their life together. The simple cottage, with its thick walls and thatched roof, would become the center of their universe. The priest or village elder would move through the humble rooms, offering prayers for happiness, fertility, and protection. The hearth, the heart of the medieval home, would receive special attention, for it was here that the couple would cook their meals, gather for conversation, and find warmth during the cold months. The marriage bed, though simple, would be blessed as the place where the couple would find physical and emotional intimacy, and where, God willing, their children would be conceived. These blessings were not mere formalities, but expressions of the community's understanding that marriage was both a personal commitment and a contribution to the collective good. The couple's success in their married life would benefit not only themselves, but the entire community. Their potential children would grow up to contribute to the village's workforce and to carry on its traditions. Their household would become a center of production and hospitality, contributing to the community's economic and social vitality. The blessings, therefore, were investments in the community's future, expressions of hope and confidence in the couple's ability to fulfill their new roles. The spiritual dimension of peasant honeymoons also included the couple's own private prayers and devotions. In the quiet moments before sleep, they would offer thanks for their good fortune in finding each other and ask for guidance in their new roles as husband and wife. These prayers were simple and heartfelt, expressing gratitude for the basic blessings of life: food, shelter, health, and companionship. They would pray for the strength to support each other through the challenges that lay ahead, for the wisdom to make good decisions, and for the grace to find joy in their simple life together. The medieval peasant honeymoon, with its emphasis on community bonds, simple pleasures, and the integration of celebration with daily life, offers a unique perspective on the beginning of married life. It reminds us that happiness does not require luxury or exotic experiences, but can be found in the most fundamental human connections and the most basic activities of daily life. The peasant couples who began their married lives in medieval villages discovered that true romance lay not in grand gestures or expensive gifts, but in the quiet satisfaction of working together toward common goals, in the gentle pleasure of conversation and companionship, and in the profound security that comes from being part of a community that cares about your welfare. Their honeymoons may have lacked the drama and excitement that we might associate with romantic getaways, but they possessed something perhaps more valuable: the solid foundation of shared purpose, community support, and the deep satisfaction that comes from building a life together based on mutual respect, practical cooperation, and genuine affection. In the gentle rhythm of their days, in the simple pleasures they shared, and in the blessings they received from their community, these humble couples found the beginning of marriages that would sustain them through all the challenges and joys that lay ahead. As we reflect on these medieval peasant honeymoons, we might consider what modern couples could learn from their example. Perhaps there is wisdom in their emphasis on community support, in their ability to find joy in simple pleasures, in their understanding that true intimacy develops through shared work and common purpose. Perhaps there is something to be said for honeymoons that are not escapes from real life, but rather introductions to the life that the couple will build together. In the end, the peasant's celebration of marriage, with its emphasis on simple joys and community bonds, reminds us that the most profound happiness often comes not from what we acquire, but from what we share, not from where we go, but from whom we choose to accompany us on the journey. Chapter 6: Sacred Spaces, Monasteries, Pilgrimage, and Spiritual Journeys. In the quiet moments before dawn, when the world lay wrapped in the gentle embrace of morning mist, countless medieval couples began their most sacred journey together. The path stretched ahead through ancient forests and across rolling hills, leading toward distant spires and holy places that had drawn pilgrims for centuries. This was not merely a honeymoon in the way we might understand it today, but rather a profound spiritual undertaking that would weave the couple's new marriage into the very fabric of their faith. The tradition of pilgrimage as honeymoon represented one of the most beautiful and meaningful ways that medieval couples could begin their married life, transforming their union from a simple earthly contract into a sacred covenant blessed by divine grace. The practice of embarking on pilgrimage immediately following marriage had deep roots in medieval Christianity, where the act of marriage itself was understood as a form of holy sacrament. The newlywed couple, fresh from their wedding vows, would set out together on a journey that was both physical and spiritual, seeking the blessings of saints and the purification that came from visiting sacred sites. These journeys were not undertaken lightly, for they required considerable preparation, resources, and commitment. Yet for those who could manage it, the pilgrimage honeymoon offered an opportunity to begin married life with the highest possible spiritual purpose, dedicating their union to God and seeking divine guidance for the years ahead. The great pilgrimage routes of medieval Europe beckoned to these couples with promises of spiritual renewal and divine blessing. Canterbury, with its magnificent cathedral and the shrine of St. Thomas Becket, drew countless newlyweds from across England and the continent. The journey to Canterbury was one of the most accessible and popular pilgrimage destinations, offering a relatively safe passage through well-established routes that had been worn smooth by the feet of countless faithful travelers. The cathedral itself, with its soaring Gothic arches and the golden shrine of the martyred archbishop, provided a setting of transcendent beauty where couples could offer prayers for their marriage and seek the intercession of England's most beloved saint. The pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela in northwestern Spain represented a far more ambitious undertaking, one that would test the couple's commitment to each other and to their faith. The Camino de Santiago, stretching across the Pyrenees and through the varied landscapes of northern Spain, offered a journey of several weeks or even months, depending on the starting point and the pace of travel. Couples who undertook this pilgrimage together would experience every aspect of married life in miniature during their journey. They would face hardships and challenges that would test their patience and mutual support, moments of breathtaking beauty that would create shared memories to last a lifetime, and the profound satisfaction that comes from achieving a difficult goal through mutual effort and determination. The route to Santiago was marked by a network of monasteries, churches, and hospices that had been established specifically to serve pilgrims. These way stations provided not only physical shelter and sustenance, but also spiritual guidance and the opportunity for couples to participate in the daily rhythms of monastic life. The experience of rising before dawn for morning prayers, sharing simple meals in contemplative silence, and walking the ancient paths that had been sanctified by the passage of countless pilgrims created a unique honeymoon experience that was both profoundly romantic and deeply spiritual. Rome, the eternal city and the heart of Western Christianity, represented the ultimate pilgrimage destination for medieval couples. The journey to Rome was the most demanding of all, requiring months of travel through often dangerous territory, but it offered rewards that were correspondingly great. The city itself was a living museum of Christian history, filled with basilicas, catacombs, and relics that connected the pilgrims directly to the earliest days of their faith. For newlywed couples, the opportunity to pray at the tomb of St. Peter, to attend Mass celebrated by the Pope himself, and to receive the apostolic blessing on their marriage represented the pinnacle of spiritual achievement. The pilgrimage to Rome also offered couples the opportunity to visit numerous other sacred sites along the way. The route through the Alps, though challenging, provided moments of transcendent beauty that many couples remembered as the most romantic of their entire marriage. The monasteries of Switzerland and northern Italy, with their traditions of hospitality and their spectacular mountain settings, offered refuges of peace and contemplation where couples could rest and reflect on the spiritual significance of their journey. The approach to Rome itself, with its ancient aqueducts and the first glimpse of St. Peter's Dome rising above the seven hills, created a sense of awe and accomplishment that bonded couples together in their shared triumph. The monastery guest houses that dotted the pilgrimage routes provided a unique form of accommodation that shaped the entire character of these spiritual honeymoons. The Benedictine tradition of hospitality, codified in the rule of Saint Benedict, required monasteries to welcome all travelers as if they were Christ himself. This meant that even the humblest newlywed couple could expect to receive food, shelter, and spiritual guidance from some of the most learned and holy men of their time. The monasteries offered not luxury in the worldly sense, but something far more precious, the opportunity to experience the rhythm of contemplative life and to understand marriage within the context of a broader spiritual community. The daily schedule of monastic life provided structure for these pilgrim couples that was both challenging and deeply meaningful. The call to prayer at dawn, the hours of contemplative silence, the the shared meals eaten without conversation and the evening prayers that concluded each day created a framework within which couples could explore the spiritual dimensions of their new relationship. The simplicity of monastic life, with its emphasis on prayer, work, and study, offered a stark contrast to the often chaotic and materialistic world from which the couples had come. This simplicity allowed them to focus on the essential elements of their relationship and to discover forms of intimacy that went beyond the purely physical. The guest quarters of medieval monasteries were designed to provide comfort without luxury, accommodation that was adequate but not indulgent. Couples would typically share a simple chamber with stone walls, a wooden bed, and perhaps a small window that looked out onto the monastery's gardens or courtyards. The furnishings were minimal but functional, reflecting the monastic values of simplicity and humility. Yet within these austere surroundings, couples often discovered a particular kind of romance that was spiritual rather than sensual, based on shared purpose and mutual devotion rather than on physical pleasure alone. The meals provided by monastery guest houses were simple but nourishing, often reflecting the agricultural produce of the monastery's own lands. The bread was baked fresh daily by the monastic community. The vegetables came from gardens tended by the monks themselves, and the simple wine or ale was produced according to traditions that had been refined over centuries. These meals were typically eaten in silence or accompanied only by the reading of sacred texts, creating an atmosphere of contemplation and reverence that transformed the act of eating into a form of prayer. For couples accustomed to the social dining customs of secular life, this contemplative approach to meals offered a new way of experiencing togetherness and shared purpose. The spiritual aspects of early marriage were understood very differently in medieval times than they are today. Marriage was not merely a legal contract or even a romantic partnership, but a sacred covenant that reflected the relationship between Christ and the Church. The pilgrimage honeymoon provided an opportunity for couples to explore and internalize the spiritual dimension of their union. Through prayer, contemplation, and the guidance of learned clergy, they could come to understand their marriage as a path to salvation, a means of mutual sanctification that would bring them closer to God while deepening their love for each other. The concept of marriage as a sacrament meant that the couple's relationship was understood to be a channel of divine grace, a means by which God's love could be made manifest in the world. The pilgrimage honeymoon provided an ideal setting for couples to explore this understanding and to commit themselves not only to each other, but to the higher purpose that their marriage was meant to serve. The sacred sites they visited, the relics they venerated, and the prayers they offered together all served to reinforce the spiritual foundation of their union and to provide them with the resources they would need to maintain their commitment through the challenges that lay ahead. The relics, shrines, and sacred destinations that formed the goals of these pilgrimages held profound meaning for medieval couples. Each relic was understood to possess miraculous powers, the ability to heal physical ailments, resolve spiritual crises, and provide divine guidance for those who approached with proper faith and devotion. For newlywed couples, the opportunity to pray before the relics of saints who had themselves lived lives of extraordinary devotion provided both inspiration and practical guidance for their own marriage. The stories of these saints, their struggles and triumphs, their commitment to their vows, and their service to others offered models that couples could strive to emulate in their own lives. The shrine of St. Thomas Becket at Canterbury, for example, was renowned for its power to resolve conflicts and restore harmony to troubled relationships. Couples who prayed at this shrine would ask for the saint's intercession in helping them navigate the inevitable disagreements and challenges that would arise in their marriage. The Golden Shrine, surrounded by countless offerings from grateful pilgrims, created an atmosphere of divine presence that made prayer feel particularly powerful and immediate. The cathedral itself, with its soaring vaults and jeweled windows, provided a setting of transcendent beauty that lifted the spirits and inspired feelings of reverence and awe. The shrine of St. James at Santiago de Compostela was associated with protection for travelers and guidance for those embarking on new journeys. For couples beginning the journey of married life, the saint's intercession was particularly appropriate, as they sought divine protection for the path ahead and wisdom to make the right choices in their new roles as husband and wife. The cathedral at Santiago, with its elaborate Romanesque facade and the famous Portico of Glory, provided a fitting climax to the long and difficult journey across northern Spain. The moment when couples first glimpsed the cathedral's towers rising above the red tile roofs of the ancient city was often described as one of the most emotionally powerful of their entire pilgrimage. The numerous churches and basilicas of Rome offered couples the opportunity to pray before relics of the apostles, martyrs, and saints who had shaped the early Christian church. The tomb of St. Peter, located beneath the high altar of the great basilica that bears his name, was considered the most sacred site in Western Christianity. Couples who prayed at this tomb were seeking the intercession of the first pope, the rock upon which Christ had built his church, in establishing their own marriage as a foundation for a Christian family. The elaborate papal ceremonies that they might witness during their stay in Rome provided them with glimpses of the highest expressions of Christian worship and reinforced their understanding of marriage as a sacred institution blessed by the Church. The medieval concept of marriage as pilgrimage extended beyond the literal journey to sacred sites to encompass the entire married life as a spiritual journey towards salvation. Just as pilgrims faced hardships and challenges on their way to holy places, married couples would face trials and difficulties on their journey through life together. The pilgrimage honeymoon provided them with both the spiritual resources and the practical experience they would need to meet these challenges with faith and mutual support. The lessons learned on the road to Canterbury, Santiago, or Rome would serve them well in the years ahead as they faced the inevitable struggles of raising children, managing a household, and maintaining their commitment to each other through all the changes and challenges that life would bring. The Benedictine traditions of welcoming travelers created a network of hospitality that made these pilgrimage honeymoons possible. The Rule of Saint Benedict, written in the 6th century, established principles of monastic life that included the obligation to receive all guests with kindness and generosity. This tradition meant that pilgrims could travel across Europe with confidence that they would find shelter, food, and spiritual guidance at regular intervals along their route. For couples undertaking honeymoon pilgrimages, this network of monastic hospitality provided not only practical support, but also spiritual nourishment that enriched their entire experience. The Benedictine emphasis on the balance between prayer, work, and study created monastery communities that were uniquely suited to provide guidance for married couples. The monks who welcomed pilgrims had themselves made vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, but their understanding of commitment, sacrifice, and mutual support provided valuable insights for couples beginning their own journey of lifelong dedication. The conversations that couples had with learned abbots and scholarly monks often provided them with perspectives on marriage that they could not have gained anywhere else, insights that would shape their understanding of their relationship for years to come. The monastery libraries, with their collections of theological texts, lives of saints, and works of spiritual guidance, offered couples the opportunity to deepen their understanding of marriage as a Christian calling. Many monasteries had developed particular expertise in providing counsel to married couples, and their abbots were often sought out for their wisdom in resolving marital difficulties and providing guidance for Christian family life. The time spent in these libraries, reading and discussing the great works of Christian spirituality, provided couples with intellectual as well as spiritual resources that would serve them well in their married life. The monastery workshops, where monks practiced various crafts and trades, offered couples examples of how work could be transformed into prayer and how the material necessities of life could be pursued without losing sight of higher spiritual goals. The sight of monks working in their gardens, copying manuscripts in their scriptoriums, or practicing their crafts in their workshops provided couples with models of how they might approach their own work and domestic responsibilities as forms of service to God. The integration of prayer and work that characterized monastic life offered valuable lessons for couples who would need to balance their own spiritual aspirations with the practical demands of married life. The monastery infirmaries, where monks cared for the sick and injured, demonstrated the Christian ideals of compassion and service that were meant to characterize married life. The tender care that monks provided for their brothers who were ill or elderly offered couples examples of how they might care for each other through the inevitable challenges of illness, aging, and death. The monastery's commitment to caring for all members of the community, regardless of their ability to contribute, provided a model for the kind of unconditional love and mutual support that was meant to characterize Christian marriage. The evening prayers that concluded each day in monastery guest houses provided couples with opportunities for shared meditation and reflection on the spiritual significance of their journey. The Compline service, with its beautiful chants and prayers for peaceful rest, created an atmosphere of serenity and contemplation that was conducive to intimate conversation and spiritual bonding. The silence that followed these prayers, when couples would retire to their simple chambers, was not empty but full of the presence of the divine in the sense of purpose that had brought them on their pilgrimage. The dawn prayers that began each day in the monastery created a rhythm of spiritual discipline that many couples found transformative. The call to prayer in the darkness before sunrise, the gathering of the community in the chapel for the singing of psalms, and the gradual emergence of light through the stained glass windows created a daily renewal of purpose and commitment that strengthened the couple's bond with each other and with their faith. Many couples reported that these early morning prayers were among the most meaningful moments of their entire pilgrimage, times when they felt most clearly the presence of God in their marriage and their calling to serve Him together. The farewells that marked the end of stays in monastery guest houses were often emotional occasions, as couples had formed genuine bonds with the monastic communities that had welcomed them. The blessings they received from abbots and monks, the small gifts of prayer books or religious medals, and the promises of continued prayers all served to maintain the spiritual connections that had been forged during their stay. These connections often lasted for years, with couples writing letters to their monastic friends and even returning to visit the monasteries that had played such important roles in their honeymoon pilgrimage. The return journey from these pilgrimage destinations often proved as spiritually significant as the outward journey. Couples who had achieved their goal of reaching Canterbury, Santiago, or Rome would begin the homeward journey with a sense of accomplishment and spiritual renewal that transformed their perspective on their marriage and their future together. The familiar landscapes that they encountered on their return took on new meaning as they saw their homeland through eyes that had been opened by their pilgrimage experience. The prospect of returning to their ordinary lives was not diminished but enhanced by their spiritual journey, as they brought with them the blessings they had received and the deeper understanding of their marriage that they had gained. The integration of these pilgrimage experiences into the couple's ongoing married life was one of the most important aspects of the spiritual honeymoon. The prayers they had learned, the insights they had gained, and the spiritual practices they had adopted during their journey were meant to be continued and developed throughout their married life. The sacred objects they had acquired, the relics they had touched, and the blessings they had received all became part of the spiritual foundation of their household, reminders of the sacred purposes that their marriage was meant to serve. The stories and memories from these pilgrimage honeymoons became part of the couple's shared history, tales that they would tell to their children and grandchildren as examples of the spiritual foundations upon which their family had been built. The challenges they had overcome together, the sacred sites they had visited, and the blessings they had received all became part of the narrative of their love, evidence of the divine purpose that had brought them together and the spiritual resources that would sustain them through whatever challenges lay ahead. In the gentle rhythm of these spiritual journeys, in the quiet moments of prayer and contemplation, and in the profound sense of purpose that characterized these pilgrimage honeymoons, medieval couples discovered a form of romantic love that was both deeply personal and transcendently spiritual. Their honeymoons were not escapes from the realities of married life, but rather preparations for a lifetime of shared devotion, mutual support, and service to God. The sacred spaces they visited, the spiritual practices they adopted, and the divine blessings they received all contributed to marriages that were understood not merely as earthly partnerships, but as pathways to eternal salvation, journeys of love that would continue long after their earthly pilgrimage had ended. Chapter 7, Seasonal Rhythms, How Nature Shaped Medieval Honeymoons. In the medieval world, where the boundary between human life and the natural world was far thinner than it is today, the changing seasons held profound influence over every aspect of existence, including the most intimate celebrations of new marriage. The rhythm of the year, marked by the gentle progression from the tender green of spring through the golden abundance of summer, the rich harvests of autumn, and the contemplative quiet of winter, provided a natural framework within which couples celebrated their honeymoons. Each season brought its own particular gifts and challenges, its own opportunities for romance and intimacy, and its own special ways of blessing the union of two souls embarking on the journey of married life together. The medieval understanding of time itself was fundamentally different from our modern conception. Rather than the precise mechanical measurement of hours and minutes that governs our contemporary world, medieval people experienced time as a flowing, organic progression intimately connected to the cycles of nature. The sun's journey across the sky, the phases of the moon, the migration of birds, and the changing length of days all served as natural timepieces that regulated the rhythm of human activity. For couples celebrating their honeymoons, this meant that their most intimate moments were naturally synchronized with the great cosmic rhythms that governed all life, creating a sense of harmony between their personal joy and the universal order of creation. Spring weddings held a special place in medieval tradition as the season of renewal and rebirth provided the perfect backdrop for couples beginning their new life together. The timing of these celebrations was carefully chosen to coincide with the awakening of the natural world, when the earth itself seemed to demonstrate the power of love and the promise of new beginnings. The first tender shoots of green pushing through the winter earth, the delicate blossoms appearing on fruit trees, and the return of songbirds from their winter retreats all served as natural symbols of the fertility, hope, and joy that characterized the beginning of marriage. The flower gathering that formed such an important part of spring honeymoons was far more than mere decoration or romantic gesture. In medieval symbolism, flowers carried deep meanings that spoke to the spiritual and emotional dimensions of marriage. The couple would walk together through meadows carpeted with wildflowers, their hands intertwined as they selected blossoms that would adorn their home and their persons during the honeymoon period. The act of gathering flowers together became a form of meditation, a quiet sharing of beauty that allowed the couple to attune themselves to the natural world and to each other. The soft rustle of their footsteps through the grass, the gentle hum of bees visiting the flowers, and the warm touch of sunlight on their faces created a sensory symphony that enhanced the romantic atmosphere of their celebration. Each flower they gathered carried its own symbolic meaning, understood by medieval people with a sophistication that we can barely imagine today. The rose, with its perfect beauty and dangerous thorns, represented the complexity of love itself, beautiful but requiring careful handling. The lily, pure and white, symbolized the innocence and purity that were meant to characterize the marriage bed. The violet, modest and hidden among the leaves, represented the humility and faithfulness that were essential virtues for married life. The daisy, simple and cheerful, spoke of the joy and contentment that could be found in the ordinary moments of shared life. As couples gathered these flowers, they were not simply collecting decorations, but rather assembling a living poem about the nature of love and marriage, a fragrant meditation on the hopes and dreams they shared for their future together. The preparation of flower crowns and garlands became a shared activity that deepened the couple's intimacy and connection. Sitting together in the dappled shade of a blossoming tree, their fingers working skillfully to weave stems and petals into beautiful arrangements, they would talk quietly about their hopes for the future, their dreams for their household, and their gratitude for finding each other. The delicate work of flower arrangement required patience and cooperation, qualities that would serve them well in the years of marriage that lay ahead. The finished crowns, worn during their honeymoon celebrations, transformed the couple into living embodiments of spring's beauty, crowned with the very essence of the season's renewal and growth. The spring honeymoon also included the ancient ritual of blessing the fields and gardens, where the couple would grow the food that would sustain them through the coming year. Together, they would walk the boundaries of their land, scattering flower petals and offering prayers for abundant harvests and protection from the various threats that could destroy their crops. This ritual connected their marriage to the land itself, making their union part of the eternal cycle of planting, growing, and harvesting that sustained all life. The act of blessing their land together established them as partners, not only in love, but in the practical work of survival, united in their commitment to creating a household that would prosper and endure. As spring gave way to summer, the character of medieval honeymoons shifted to accommodate the longer days, warmer weather, and increased activity that characterized the season. Summer celebrations took advantage of the extended daylight hours, allowing couples to enjoy outdoor activities that would have been impossible during the darker months. The warm evenings, fragrant with the scent of roses and honeysuckle, provided perfect settings for intimate conversations and romantic walks. The abundance of fresh fruits and vegetables, the availability of flowers throughout the season, and the general sense of prosperity and well-being that characterized summer created an atmosphere of celebration and joy that enhanced every aspect of the honeymoon experience. The outdoor feasts that marked summer honeymoons were elaborate affairs that took full advantage of the season's bounty. Tables would be set up in gardens or courtyards, decorated with garlands of flowers and laden with dishes that showcased the best of summer's harvest. Fresh berries, picked that morning from the couple's own bushes, would be served with thick cream and honey. Young vegetables, tender and sweet, would be prepared in ways that highlighted their natural flavors. The fruits of the season, from early cherries to late peaches, would be arranged in beautiful displays that pleased the eye as much as the palate. The couple would feast together under the stars, their celebration extending far into the warm night, creating memories that would sustain them through the darker months ahead. The summer honeymoon also provided opportunities for extended travel and exploration that would have been difficult or impossible during other seasons. The good weather and long days made it practical for couples to undertake journeys to distant relatives, religious sites, or places of natural beauty. These summer journeys often took the form of leisurely progressions, with the couple stopping frequently to enjoy the scenery, visit with friends and family, and participate in the various festivals and celebrations that marked the summer calendar. The roads, dry and passable during the summer months, welcomed travelers with their promise of adventure and discovery, allowing couples to see new places and experience new things together as they began their married life. The midsummer festivals that occurred during the summer honeymoon period provided couples with opportunities to participate in ancient celebrations that connected them to the deepest traditions of their culture. The lighting of bonfires on Midsummer Eve, the gathering of herbs and flowers believed to have special powers, and the various rituals associated with the summer solstice all served to embed the couple's celebration within the broader context of community tradition and cosmic rhythm. These festivals, with their emphasis on fertility, abundance, and the power of the sun, provided natural frameworks for honeymoon celebrations that were both deeply personal and richly communal. The long summer days also provided couples with extended opportunities for the kinds of intimate conversations and shared activities that deepened their understanding of each other and strengthened their bond. The warm evenings, too pleasant to spend indoors, encouraged couples to linger outside, talking softly as they watched the stars emerge in the darkening sky. The abundance of flowers and the general beauty of the summer landscape provided constant inspiration for romantic gestures and expressions of love. The sense of energy and vitality that characterized the summer season infused the couple's celebration with a spirit of joy and optimism that colored their entire relationship. As the wheel of the year turned toward autumn, medieval honeymoons took on a different character, shaped by the season's emphasis on harvest, preparation, and the gathering of resources for the winter months ahead. Autumn honeymoons were characterized by a sense of abundance and gratitude as couples celebrated their marriage amidst the rich harvest of the year's labors. The golden light of autumn, slanting through the changing leaves and casting everything in warm, glowing colors, provided a romantic backdrop for celebrations that were both beautiful and practical, romantic and responsible. The harvest activities that dominated autumn provided couples with opportunities to work together toward common goals, establishing patterns of cooperation and mutual support that would characterize their entire married life. The gathering of apples from the orchard, the pressing of grapes for wine, the preservation of vegetables for winter storage, and the countless other tasks associated with harvest time all became opportunities for the couple to demonstrate their commitment to each other and to their shared future. The satisfaction of seeing their storerooms filled with the fruits of their labor, their cellars stocked with wine and preserves, and their households prepared for the winter months ahead, created a deep sense of accomplishment and security that enhanced their marital bond. The autumn honeymoon also included the preparation of special foods and delicacies that would grace the couple's table during the winter months. The making of preserves, the curing of meats, and the preparation of various holiday treats all became shared activities that deepened the couple's intimacy and connection. The kitchen, warm with the heat of cooking fires and fragrant with the sense of spices and herbs, became a center of domestic activity where the couple could work side by side, their hands busy with the tasks of preparation while their voices shared the dreams and plans that would guide their life together. The changing colors of the autumn landscape provided inspiration for decorations and celebrations that reflected the season's particular beauty. The brilliant reds and golds of changing leaves, the deep purple of late grapes, and the warm brown of newly harvested grain all found their way into the couple's celebrations, creating a visual feast that complemented the abundant food and drink that characterized autumn festivities. The couple would gather colorful leaves to decorate their home, creating arrangements that brought the beauty of the season indoors and served as constant reminders of the natural abundance that surrounded and sustained them. The autumn honeymoon also provided opportunities for reflection and contemplation as the couple prepared for the more inward-focused activities of winter. The shorter days and cooler temperatures encouraged a more contemplative approach to celebration, one that emphasized the deepening of emotional and spiritual bonds rather than the more active pursuits of summer. The couple would spend longer hours in conversation, sharing their thoughts about the year that was ending and their hopes for the year to come. The sense of completion and fulfillment that characterized autumn created a natural atmosphere for taking stock of their relationship and making plans for the future. The festivals and celebrations that marked the autumn calendar provided couples with opportunities to participate in community traditions while celebrating their own union. The harvest festivals, with their emphasis on gratitude and abundance, provided natural frameworks for honeymoon celebrations that were both personally meaningful and communally significant. The blessing of the harvest, the sharing of the season's bounty with neighbors and friends, and the various rituals associated with the autumn equinox all serve to connect the couple's celebration to the broader rhythms of community life and cosmic order. Winter honeymoons possessed a unique intimacy and warmth that set them apart from celebrations in other seasons. The cold weather and shorter days naturally drew couples indoors, creating opportunities for the kind of quiet, contemplative togetherness that could be difficult to achieve during the more active seasons. The necessity of staying warm encouraged physical closeness and created a natural atmosphere for intimate conversation and shared activities. The long winter evenings, too dark for outdoor work but perfect for indoor pursuits, provided extended opportunities for the couple to focus on each other and on the development of their relationship. The hearth-centered activities that characterized winter honeymoons created a sense of domestic coziness and security that was both romantic and practical. The couple would spend hours by the fire, engaged in various crafts and activities that contributed to their household while providing opportunities for intimate conversation. The wife might work on embroidery or spinning, while her husband carved wood or repaired tools, their hands busy with useful work, while their voices shared the thoughts and dreams that would shape their life together. The warm glow of the fire, the soft sounds of their activities, and the sense of being safely sheltered from the cold world outside created an atmosphere of peace and contentment that many couples remembered as the most romantic aspect of their entire honeymoon. The preparation and sharing of warm, nourishing foods became a central focus of winter honeymoons as couples worked together to create meals that would sustain them through the cold months. The making of hearty stews, the baking of bread, and the preparation of warming drinks all became shared activities that deepened the couple's bond while providing practical benefits. The kitchen, with its constant fire and warm atmosphere, became a center of domestic activity where the couple could work together while enjoying the companionship and conversation that made the winter months bearable. The winter honeymoon also provided opportunities for the kinds of indoor entertainments and activities that were particularly suited to the season. The couple might spend evenings reading aloud to each other, playing games, or engaging in various crafts and artistic pursuits. The long nights encouraged storytelling and the sharing of family histories, allowing the couple to learn about each other's backgrounds and to begin weaving their separate stories into a shared narrative. The sense of being cut off from the outside world by weather and darkness created a natural atmosphere for the kind of intimate bonding that was essential to a successful marriage. The medieval calendar, with its complex interweaving of religious and secular observances, provided a rich framework within which couples could celebrate their honeymoons. The church's liturgical year, with its cycles of preparation, celebration, and reflection, offered natural rhythms that could be incorporated into honeymoon celebrations. The various saints' days, with their associated traditions and observances, provided opportunities for couples to seek divine blessings on their union and to participate in community celebrations that reinforced their place in the social fabric of their community. The secular calendar, with its markets, fairs, and seasonal celebrations, provided additional opportunities for couples to participate in the broader life of their community while celebrating their own union. The timing of these various observances often influenced the scheduling of weddings and honeymoons, as couples sought to take advantage of favorable weather, abundant food supplies, and the availability of friends and family for celebration. The careful coordination of personal celebrations with community observances created a sense of harmony between individual joy and collective celebration that enriched the entire honeymoon experience. Weather patterns and travel considerations played crucial roles in shaping the character and timing of medieval honeymoons. The practical realities of medieval transportation, with its dependence on weather conditions and seasonal accessibility, meant that couples had to carefully plan their celebrations to take advantage of favorable conditions. The spring thaw that made roads passable after the winter, the summer drought that could make river crossings easier, and the autumn rains that might make travel difficult, all had to be considered when planning honeymoon activities and destinations. The unpredictability of medieval weather also required couples to be flexible and adaptable in their honeymoon plans. A sudden storm might force them to seek shelter and create unexpected opportunities for intimate conversation and bonding. A stretch of unusually warm weather might allow for outdoor activities that would not normally be possible during that season. The ability to adapt their celebrations to changing conditions became part of the adventure of the honeymoon, teaching couples valuable lessons about flexibility and cooperation that would serve them well in their married life. The seasonal rhythms that shaped medieval honeymoons created a deep connection between the couple's celebration and the natural world that sustained them. This connection was not merely symbolic, but practical, as the timing and character of their celebration were directly influenced by the availability of food, the conditions for travel, and the cycle of agricultural work that governed medieval life. The couple's honeymoon thus became part of the great rhythm of the seasons, their personal joy synchronized with the cosmic dance of earth and sky, sun and moon that governed all life in the medieval world. In the gentle progression of the seasons, in the quiet wisdom of natural rhythms, and in the deep connection between human celebration and cosmic order, medieval couples found a framework for honeymoon celebrations that was both deeply romantic and profoundly meaningful. Their honeymoons were not separate from the natural world, but embedded within it, drawing strength and inspiration from the eternal cycles that governed all life. The seasonal patterns that shaped their celebrations provided not only practical guidance, but spiritual insight, reminding them that their love was part of something larger than themselves, connected to the great web of life that sustained all creation. Chapter 8: Food and Feast. The Culinary Honeymoon Experience. Soft, ambient music begins. The narrator's voice is gentle, warm, and measured as the wedding bells fade into memory and the last guests depart into the gathering dusk.